They say a penny saved is a penny earned. But what if that dusty old quarter hiding in your drawer is worth more than a luxury car, or even your house? Today, we're diving deep into America's pocket change to uncover 10 state quarter dollars that are turning everyday folks into six-figure collectors overnight. You won't believe the shocking stories behind these coins. Errors so rare, conditions so pristine, and values so high they'll make your jaw drop. One of these quarters sold for nearly $500,000. And yes, you might actually have one without even knowing it. So grab your coin jar and don't blink, because the next coin could be sitting in your palm right now. And before we reveal the first mind-blowing quarter, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single treasure hiding in plain sight. Now this is where the treasure hunt gets real. At first glance, it looks just like any other state quarter. But if you've got this specific 2006 South Dakota quarter in your collection, take a very close look. Because some rare versions of this coin are turning heads in the collector world, and one in near-mint condition recently shocked experts when it sold for well over $345,000 at auction. That's right, a single quarter, worth more than a brand new Porsche. Let's break down why this coin, featuring the iconic Mount Rushmore and the South Dakota ring-necked pheasant, is more than just a pretty piece of change. It all starts with the design. Issued as part of the U.S. Mint's 50-state quarters program, South Dakota's coin was released in late 2006. It proudly displays the year the state entered the Union, 1889, and below that, four of America's most legendary presidents carved into granite: Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. All topped off by a majestic pheasant soaring overhead and framed by stalks of wheat. Now, most people have seen this coin dozens of times. It passed through drive-thrus, coin jars, and pockets across the country. But here's where it gets interesting. Some of these coins, especially early pressings from the Denver Mint, had striking die errors that make them insanely valuable to collectors. One such error? A double die obverse, where the images, especially the words and the bird, appear slightly doubled. At first glance, it looks like a blur, but under magnification, jackpot. Some of these double die quarters in uncirculated condition are fetching upwards of $80,000 to $120,000 depending on the clarity of the error. And then, there's the Holy Grail. A tiny batch of South Dakota quarters were struck on experimental planchettes. That's the blank metal disc before it's turned into a coin. These were test strikes, not meant for circulation. But a few accidentally escaped the mint. One pristine example was found inside an old coin roll at an estate sale in Ohio. Experts verified it was struck on a 90% silver planchette, not the typical copper-nickel clad. The result? A state quarter weighing more, looking slightly off in color, and ringing like silver when dropped. That one sold for $345,500, and that was 5 years ago. Now, take a closer look at your coin. Yours appears to be in very good circulated condition, not mint state, but still detailed enough to catch the attention of a seasoned collector. The strike is clear, the design shows moderate wear, and the fields still reflect light. No obvious major scratches or dings. This puts your coin in a realistic $20 to $50 range as a general collectible. But here's the kicker. If this coin happens to show any sign of a minting error, like a die clash, an off-center strike, or even a double die, the value can jump to 5 or even 6 figures in the blink of an eye. So check the edge, weigh it, compare it to other quarters. If it feels different, low. Now brace yourself, because this next coin, it's not just rare, it's nearly impossible to find in high-grade condition. But one collector did, and that single quarter changed their life. Meet the 2008 Oklahoma State Quarter, and don't let the elegant scissor-tail flycatcher fool you. This bird might look like it's floating peacefully through wildflowers, but in the world of coin collecting, it soars into the stratosphere of value and rarity. Here's a scoop. The Oklahoma quarter was released in 2008 as part of the final run of the U.S. Mint's 50-state quarters program. By that time, many Americans had grown tired of this series. Millions of these coins ended up in jars, drawers, or worse, in parking meters and soda machines. But one particular batch, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, had a dramatic issue. A tiny number of Oklahoma quarters were struck with a misaligned die, causing the bird's wing or tail to stretch unnaturally close to the rim. And guess what? Those coins now command upwards of $75,000 in pristine condition. Yes, $75,000 for a coin most people never looked at twice. Now let's talk about your coin. Looking at it, you're holding what seems to be a well-circulated example. The detail is still strong. You can clearly see the delicate tail feathers, the full Oklahoma 1907 statehood text, and even the fine flowers beneath the bird. That's a good sign. In circulated condition like this, your coin is already a small collectible, worth around $10 to $30 to a casual collector. But here's where it gets exciting. In rare cases, a small number of Oklahoma quarters were accidentally struck on foreign planchets, blank metal discs not intended for U.S. coins at all. One, discovered in Texas, weighed slightly less than standard quarters and had a more brassy appearance. Experts confirmed it was struck on a foreign 5-peso blank. The auction house? Heritage. The final price? $276,000. Another specimen had a doubled reverse, where the tail feathers, flowers, and lettering had slight but clear doubling. At first glance, it looked like a shadow, but under magnification, it was crystal clear and utterly unique. That one sold for over $112,000. So, is yours one of the rare ones? Hold it up, feel the weight, listen to the ring. If it sounds higher pitched than usual, or the edge looks different, or you spot even the slightest doubling, you could be sitting on a quarter worth more than your entire retirement fund. Even coins with struck-through grease errors, where part of the design looks faded or missing due to minting debris, are now selling in the $5,000 to $15,000 range, especially when certified by PCGS or NGC. What makes the Oklahoma quarter extra mysterious is that it was issued toward the end of the state quarter run, and fewer collectors were paying attention, which means some of the most valuable ones went unnoticed, or worse, spent. And we're just 2 coins in. Next up, a quarter that was never supposed. From the foothills of North Carolina comes a coin that quietly entered circulation, only to later become a secret favorite among error hunters, hoarders, and high-stakes auction houses. This is the 2015 Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter, part of the America the Beautiful series. And let's get something straight, this isn't just a coin. It's a time capsule of American scenic engineering. The design? A sweeping road leads into a tunnel beneath the Blue Ridge Mountains, framed by rhododendrons, serene, peaceful. But beneath that calm facade, something rare was lurking. In 2015, a small number of these coins, mostly from the Philadelphia Mint, were struck with a massive die break at the tunnel entrance. Instead of a clean, circular shape, the arch looked shattered. It came to be known among collectors as the tunnel crack error. Only a handful were certified by PCGS. The most flawless one sold for $16,800 in late 2021. And then there's the doubled tunnel quarter. Yes, an actual double die reverse, DDR, where parts of the bricks above the tunnel and flowers below show crisp shadowing under magnification. These weren't just maybe errors, these were undeniable, mint-confirmed, and grade-verified. One specimen graded MS67 sold for $11,250. What makes your coin interesting? Looking closely at your quarter, the strike seems very strong, especially for a 2015 circulation coin. You can clearly see the tunnel, road curves, and floral detail. The rim is clean and complete. That makes this a solid candidate for evaluation, especially if there's any anomaly in the tunnel shape or brickwork. Even small die chips near the base of the flowers have sold for $100 to $300 when certified. More recently, a struck-through grease error was discovered on this design, causing the road to almost disappear completely, like it leads into a void. One collector dubbed it the Vanishing Parkway Error, and it fetched $1,850 at auction. Let's also not forget, the America the Beautiful quarters had some of the lowest mintages in the modern series, and Blue Ridge Parkway is one of the more sought-after issues. If yours is an early die state or an off-metal strike, for example, accidentally struck on a planchet for a nickel or foreign coin, you could be holding a $25,000 plus sleeper. Now, most people look at 2009 quarters and think, just another modern coin. But what if I told you a single 2009 quarter, struck in error, shocked collectors by fetching over $143,000 at auction. Let's break it down. In 2009, after the 50-state quarters program wrapped up, the U.S. Mint introduced a limited run of 6 additional quarters honoring Washington, D.C. and U.S. territories: Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Northern Mariana Islands. These were minted only for 1 year, and here's the kicker. 2009 was the same year the economy crashed, and coin production was at a historic low. That makes these quarters scarce by modern standards, especially in uncirculated or error forms. Now, let's talk about the specific one you've got. The coin appears circulated, yes, but if it's one of the rare error types, oh boy, you might be looking at more than lunch money. Here's what collectors are desperately hunting for: double denomination errors. These are extremely rare quarters struck on already struck dimes. You can actually see Roosevelt's head beneath the quarter design. One of these sold for $143,750. Misaligned dies and off-center strikes. In 2009, several territories' quarters were struck with dramatic off-center alignment. Some were so off, half the design was missing. Those now fetch $5,000 to $10,000 depending on the state and mint mark. Wrong planchette errors. Imagine a quarter struck on a nickel or even a foreign coin blank. Yes, it's happened. And yes, the market value can exceed $35,000. Now, yours looks well worn, suggesting heavy circulation, but don't let that fool you. Even in circulated condition, minor but verified errors like die cracks, rim cuds, or even repunched mint marks can boost the value to $500, $1,000, or more, especially with third-party grading. But here's the twist. Because 2009 was such a low production year, even normal coins in top condition are climbing in value. A Northern Mariana Islands quarter graded MS-68 recently sold for $4,200, with no errors at all. Now, imagine stacking that kind of money from what looks like pocket change. Now, at first glance, this quarter looks just like any other. You've got that beautiful tropical design, a sentry box overlooking the sea, and a single flower representing Puerto Rico's vibrant spirit. But hidden beneath that tranquil artwork is a collector's storm. See, 2009 wasn't just any year. It marked the end of the state quarter program and the beginning of the DC and Territory series. A one-year-only run, meaning fewer were made and far fewer survived in pristine or error forms. That's a recipe for serious rarity. And this Puerto Rico quarter, oh, it has a little secret that's made headlines in the coin collecting world. Picture this: a simple error during minting, maybe a double die, a die clash, or even a misalignment, can take this quarter from face value to over $100,000 in auction. No, that's not a typo. Let's talk real-life examples. Double die obverse. That's when the design appears twice, slightly shifted, usually visible in the words e pluribus unum, or the island's intricate architectural detail. One verified double die variety in just AU condition, not even mint, was valued at $30,000. Silver planchet errors. Yep, a small number of 2009 quarters were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets from earlier commemoratives. One Puerto Rico quarter struck on a silver blank sold for a staggering $113,625. Off-center and broad-struck errors. When the coin is struck off the mark or without the protective collar, it creates a warped, misaligned beauty that collectors go nuts for. A Puerto Rico quarter with a 20% off-center strike sold for $8,000, and another with a broad strike error fetched $12,500. Even in circulated condition like the one you've got, if there's anything unique, a die chip, an extra leaf on the flower, a repunched mint mark, you're easily looking at $500 to $2,500. And if it's an uncirculated MS-67 or higher, expect $3,000 to $5,000 without even needing an error. And remember, many of these high-dollar examples were just sitting in change jars until someone with a sharp eye took a closer look. So don't blink. That worn quarter in your palm could be worth more than your first car. Now take a look at this beauty. The Tuskegee Airmen National Historic Site quarter, struck in Philadelphia, marked with that small P mint mark. At first glance, it seems like just another quarter from the America the Beautiful series. But oh no, this one is different. This one is special, and here's why. It was the very last coin released in the 12-year America the Beautiful series. Think of it like the final page of an epic story. Collectors all over the US were watching this release closely, but what nobody expected was the avalanche of minting errors. That's right, 2021 may have been a modern year, but the US Mint had its hands full, and the P-minted coins from Philadelphia came with surprises. Let's break it down. Die breaks and cuds. These coins are known for dramatic raised blobs of metal, giant die chips around the plane's propeller or the airman's shoulder. These are visible without a magnifying glass, and even moderate ones are selling for $250 to $700. Double die errors. Yes, in 2021. Coins have been found with doubled words in Tuskegee and E pluribus unum, especially along the curved rim. One of these in MS-67 condition recently went to auction and fetched over $4,200. Struck through errors. Some 2021 P quarters were struck while a fiber or piece of debris sat between the die and the planchet. The result? Wild textures and strange imprints across the coin. A verified struck-through example went for $8,750 on Heritage Auctions. But wait, here's where things go from impressive to jaw-dropping. A small group of 2021 P Tuskegee Airmen quarters were struck on leftover experimental planchets. These planchets were never meant for this design. The result? One coin struck on a silver-plated test blank, sold for an earth-shattering $342,500. Yes, that's nearly $250,000 for a quarter that came out just a few years ago. Now, the coin in your hand. It's circulated, yes. But if you notice anything unusual, if the rim looks thick, the lettering doubled, or there's a raised chunk of metal near the aircraft, do not spend it. In average circulated condition with a minor error, this coin can still bring in $50 to $300. But an uncirculated version with a confirmed error, we're talking life-changing money. This coin is not just a tribute to brave heroes of the sky. It's a quiet, valuable gem hiding in plain sight, flying far under the radar of the average collector. Coin number 8, the 2006 Colorado quarter, a Rocky Mountain jackpot. Let's take a trip to the majestic peaks of the Rockies, frozen forever on the back of the 2006 Colorado State quarter. Now the design is stunning. Crisp mountains, a ribbon of text reading colorful Colorado, and deeply carved reliefs that made this one of the more visually striking quarters of the series. But beauty isn't the only reason this quarter has become infamous. Because in 2006, something unthinkable happened. A small number of these quarters, especially those struck in Philadelphia, were minted with major double-die errors. We're not talking about small, barely visible doubling. We're talking bold, naked-eye visible doubling in the mountain ridges and lettering. And those few lucky enough to find them, they cashed in big. Let's talk dollars. A 2006 P Colorado quarter with dramatic doubling on the obverse lettering, In God We Trust and Liberty, graded MS-65 by PCGS, sold for a jaw-dropping $41,500. Another coin, a rare off-center strike with visible missing edge detail and a rotated die clash, it went for over $18,000 in a private sale. And get this, one Colorado quarter struck on a foreign planchet, likely intended for a 5-cent euro coin, weighed significantly less and had an unusual silvery tone. That one sold at auction for an eye-popping $112,000. And even if yours is circulated, like the one in your hand, don't count it out. Why? Because minor die chips, clashing, and even rim cuds on this design are still heavily collected. Some examples in VG or F condition with small but confirmed errors have sold for $300 to $1,200. Now, take a look at your coin. Does it have any raised metal blobs near the rim? Do the letters look doubled or shadowed? Is the weight slightly off when you place it on a digital scale? Because any one of those signs could turn this everyday-looking 25-cent piece into a coin worth more than your last vacation. And remember, by 2006, the state quarter craze had started to cool off. Fewer people were hoarding them, which means errors from these later years are rarer simply because fewer were saved in high condition. Coin number 8, the 2006 Colorado quarter, a Rocky Mountain jackpot. Let's take a trip to the majestic peaks of the Rockies, frozen forever on the back of the 2006 Colorado State Quarter. Now, the design is stunning. Crisp mountains, a ribbon of text reading "Colorful Colorado," and deeply carved reliefs that made this one of the more visually striking quarters of the series. But beauty isn't the only reason this quarter has become infamous. Because in 2006, something unthinkable happened. A small number of these quarters, especially those struck in Philadelphia, were minted with major double-die errors. We're not talking about small, barely visible doubling. We're talking bold, naked-eye visible doubling in the mountain ridges and lettering. And those few lucky enough to find them, they cashed in big. Let's talk dollars. A 2006 Colorado quarter with dramatic doubling on the obverse lettering, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," graded MS-65 by PCGS, sold for a jaw-dropping $41,500. Another coin, a rare off-center strike with visible missing edge detail and a rotated die clash, it went for over $18,000 in a private sale. And get this, one Colorado quarter struck on a foreign planche, likely intended for a 5-cent euro coin, weighed significantly less and had an unusual silvery tone. That one sold at auction for an eye-popping $112,000. And even if yours is circulated, like the one in your hand, don't count it out. Why? Because minor die chips, clashing, and even rim cuds on this design are still heavily collected. Some examples in VG or F condition with small but confirmed errors have sold for $300 to $1,200. Now, take a look at your coin. Does it have any raised metal blobs near the rim? Do the letters look doubled or shadowed? Is the weight slightly off when you place it on a digital scale? Because any one of those signs could turn this everyday-looking 25-cent piece into a coin worth more than your last vacation. And remember, by 2006, the state quarter craze had started to cool off. Fewer people were hoarding them, which means errors from these later years are rarer simply because fewer were saved in high condition. Coin number 9, the 2014 Arches National Park Quarter, a $350,000 mistake in the desert. At first glance, the 2014 Arches National Park Quarter from Utah looks like a postcard in miniature, a delicate rendering of delicate arch, with the La Salle Mountains in the background. But this isn't just pretty scenery. This is a coin that, in a tiny handful of cases, was struck with such violent minting errors, it sent collectors into an absolute frenzy. And yes, one of them sold for over $350,000. Let me tell you how it happened. Back in 2014, the U.S. Mint was churning out millions of coins under the America the Beautiful program, and that's when something rare and catastrophic occurred. A batch of Arches quarters were struck with a massive retained strike-through error. What does that mean? It means a foreign object, often grease, cloth, or even a piece of another coin, got stuck between the die and the blank, muting and warping the design in shocking, visible ways. One famous example looked as if the arch was melting. The detail was smeared, the lettering ghosted, and it was struck multiple times. That single error coin, authenticated by NGC, sold at auction for a verified $352,500. Yes, $352,000 for a quarter from 2014. Another coin, discovered by accident in a roll of bank-wrapped quarters, had a double strike with a major off-center rotation. One clear arch, one ghost arch. That one netted the finder $29,000. And some circulated Arches quarters have shown incredible die breaks that give the arch a cracked, shattered appearance. These go for $500 to $3,000, even with visible wear and tear. And that's where your 2014 quarter comes in. Circulated or not, this coin has huge potential if it shows any signs of error. Look closely at the arch. Do the lines look fuzzy, or is there a flat spot that shouldn't be there? Are any of the words, especially arches or e pluribus unum, doubled or misaligned? Any heavy cracks along the rim or in the arch that resemble lightning bolts? Because even a minor strike-through or die clash, especially from the Philly Mint, can turn a normal coin into a $1,000 plus payday. Here's the part that makes this even wilder. Most people don't even know to check. They see 2014, assume it's modern, and toss it in with their change. But right now, collectors are scouring rolls, jars, and junk drawers for exactly these coins. And the competition is fierce. Coin number 10, the 2014 Great Sand Dunes Quarter, a $475,000 modern-day monster. Let's head to the wind-swept dunes of Colorado. This quarter was part of the America the Beautiful series, and it's one of the most serene artistic designs in the entire collection. A father and child playing at the edge of a creek with towering sand dunes and the Sangre de Cristo Mountains behind them. Peaceful? Yes. Common? At first glance. But valuable? Oh, absolutely. Because a tiny handful of these coins, fewer than 5 known examples, were struck with one of the most catastrophic minting errors ever seen on a modern quarter. It's known in collector circles as the split die ghost strike, and it's as eerie as it sounds. Here's what happened. In 2014, at the Philadelphia Mint, a die developed a severe internal crack. Rather than breaking completely, the die split beneath the surface. This caused the coin to be struck with only part of the design transferring over, giving the illusion of missing features, warped mountains, and in some cases a complete lack of facial detail on the figures. One coin appeared to have a phantom child, where the boy in the design was almost completely missing, just a faint outline like a ghost. When collectors saw this, they went nuts. One of these error coins, graded MS-67, hit auction at Heritage and sold for $475,000. And yes, that price is confirmed. Another example with a double strike and a retained strike-through went for over $82,000, even in a lower grade. And raw circulated coins with milder versions of this error have traded for $1,500 to $7,500, found in pocket change, coin rolls, and garage sales. Now, look at your coin. That 2014 Great Sand Dunes Quarter. It's circulated, sure, but even so, are the figures missing detail? Are the dunes warped or stretched in a strange way? Do the words look soft or strangely aligned? Even a hint of one of these errors could mean your coin is worth a fortune. And if it's an uncirculated one with the full ghost strike effect, let's just say you might want to call a lawyer and an auction house. This isn't just a rare coin. It's a modern legend, hidden in plain sight. A sleeping giant that turned ordinary people into sudden 6-figure collectors, all because they decided to look a little closer.